Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to day number 5 in the Airthings Masters. Today we begin the knockout section, and just like in most sporting events, the first seed plays number 8, 2 plays 7, and so on and so forth. Now, in a slight difference of this year than 2021, the quarterfinal and the semifinal are... Oh, we just scraped a bottle cap. I'm sorry if that made a lot of noise. I'm going to kick it away. Yes, there is a bottle cap on my floor. Please don't judge me. I haven't had a chance to get rid of it after drinking sparkling apple juice with my lunch. But that therapy session aside, quarterfinals, semifinals are just one day of action. They play rapid chess, and if there's a tie after 4 rounds, they will play blitz. And tomorrow we will have the semifinals. On that note, the first match that I have for you is none other than the one played by Magnus Carlsen versus Lequang Liam. This is 2 versus 7. Magnus begins with c4, and we have a 4, and by the way, we're going to get through 7 games in about 30-35 minutes, so this is some serious recap action here. So Magnus plays g3 in the 4 knights English with the intention of bishop g2. Liam has the option to play bishop to b4 or to open up the center immediately with d5, both sides castle, and we have queen c2 by Magnus. Now actually this move and knight f6 with a3 was played in the game between Hikaru Nakamura and Andrei Yesipenko, if you remember that from the Grand Prix. So essentially, Magnus is copying Hikaru. Okay. All right. He liked what Hikaru did. He's going to try to do it himself. White has a variety of ideas here with b4. By the way, Magnus could have absolutely already had this in his notes. He could have been waiting to play this. I have no idea. But you guys should argue about it in the comments for the next, 12 hours. So obviously white wants to go b4. There's d3, e3, rook d1, rook c1. Decide which way you're going to put this bishop. White's position is super flexible. Liam plays bishop b6, getting the bishop out of the way. I think Yesipenko here played knight d4 against Hikaru. So we have bishop b6. And we sort of see white playing very flexibly, right? Like a3, b3, e3, and then bishop b2, and knight a4. So just going after this bishop. This is a very common motif in these positions. White wants to play knight a4. White might also want to play knight c5. But also there is knight takes e5 possibilities. So rook e8, d4. d4 is a very interesting move. This seems to be the entire preparation idea here from Magnus. The point of d4 is the fact that if black, for example, takes on f3, and then you take and go like this, it looks like you're just winning a pawn with black. I mean, it just straight up looks like ed4, and if white takes back, you're just taking, and that's that. But white has a move here, and the move is rook d1. And it's really difficult for black to make a move. Somehow, even though black captured a pawn, because his queen is stuck in the middle, he can't do anything. If he brings his queen all the way down here, I mean, there's no threat. I'll just take. I'll take. Maybe I'll kick your queen out, then I'll take. I'm just much better. So very nice idea, d4, slowly building up, and now Magnus is just better. So we have takes, 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 rook d1, and Liam plays knight e5. He's attacking the bishop on f3. He's giving up the pawn on b7 with the intention to play this move, to try to sneak in this pawn move, so now it can't be taken. The queen is under attack, so it's got to move. I beg your pardon. I just said the queen's under attack. It's got to move, Magnus. What are you doing? Well, I guess if d takes c2, rook takes d7, the knight gets back, and actually the trade is still fair. So Magnus doesn't have to move his queen at all. He can take on e5. Now here, Engine did want queen d2, but he's Magnus, so he's better than the computer. That's just the final say. And we get an endgame of like a big trade, right? White gets this rook on a8. We have rook takes a8 and bishop back to b2. White has 6 pawns, so does black. But you're not really going to tell me that the c2 pawn is ever going to be protected, right? So we have knight c5, rook c1, a very nice idea, ready to give away the pawn on b3 and play rook c2 and basically say your knight is kind of stuck, Liam. It's kind of stuck. And Liam's going to have to rescue this knight. First he's going to start bringing his king and his rook. But Magnus now just very slowly corrals the knight. Can't play knight c5 because the knight taken, the rook is on the back rank, unprotected. King e2, king d3. This knight's going to die. Like, the knight's just going to be absolutely stranded. And white is able to create enough of a threat around this knight to force it to a super passive position and win a pawn in an endgame. And now Magnus is up an outside pass pawn. So a pawn all the way on the flank that can just march down. And not to mention, black just can't really get his knight out. So Magnus uses this knight's just absolutely horrible positioning in this game to really improve his position and finally take, and this is it. The game's just over. It's over because white is not just the pawn up, it's an outside passer, but also this pawn is just going to be corralled. And while black is stuck defending this pawn, the knight will jump in, take everything, and, well, you're about to watch that happen. Magnus just doesn't use the knight. He just overwhelms Liam with pawns, and if black plays bishop e7, white will go here, take, game is over. Yeah, I mean, sometimes he just really makes it look completely effortless. Now, Magnus won the first rapid game, but that doesn't mean it's over. We're gonna actually go to the last rapid game now. So right now, Magnus is 2 out of 3, Liam 1 out of 3 after 2 draws, and Magnus here plays the Skara Gambit. He plays this variation where you just sack a pawn. And if you just look, I mean, this is the point. White has 6 pawns and black has 5. Why does a guy who needs to not lose with black play a gambit where you're just a pawn down on move 6? Can someone explain this to me? No? Is it just because it's Magnus? Yeah, and the point is that black even sacrifices a second pawn. Now, taking on b7 is a little bit too much for white. Black gets knight c6, rook b8. There's all sorts of aggressive counter-attacking measures for black. Being 2 pawns up here with white is actually not what white wants. Oftentimes, it's better to just bring the queen all the way out of the middle, and this is what black is going for. Now, again, if you want an instant replay of this gambit, it's played kind of in the Tarrasch move order, the Tarrasch defense, Skara Gambit, but again, you can just go look that up on your own. And yeah, I mean, the position from the opening looks like this. It looks like white is just very cleanly up a pawn. However, white sort of struggles with the development of the queenside bishop. White also struggles because the center is so open. It's very rare that the 4th, 5th, and 6th lines just have no pawns on them at all, right? This entire rectangle has nothing. And if you make the rectangle even bigger, just 1 pawn for white, right? There's no pawns, which means open space, which means actually the side that has more development, controls more space, is doing very well. And Liam has to win. So how's Liam going to do this? Well, by the way, look at this, Magnus repeating moves here. Liam obviously can't. Knight b5. And here, maybe there's an opportunity right here for white to take with the pawn and basically try to get 2 bishops versus bishop knight. Magnus here will play bishop c6, rook e8. This bishop stares down at the king, and he's just really got no problems. Liam does it this way, and here's the problem. Even with all these trades, normally you think being up a pawn is good for just clean advantage, but it's not. Like, somehow, because black is so active, there's a hidden threat in this position. And the hidden threat here is that black is actually threatening a very devastating attack on the king. So Liam plays queen b5, thinking it's a very useful move, attacking 2 pawns and targeting the rook, so the queen can't go over here. Magnus plays knight takes f2, which is shocking. And now after rook takes f2, there is rook f2, king f2, queen e3, and actually it's a mate. Say, what? How is it a mate? Just king f1. Check. King has to go here. Check. Wherever the king goes, you take the rook, and that's it. I mean, it's just force mate in a few moves. Queen e1, king f3, queen e3, check, and one of these moves will result in mate. They will both result in a mate. So knight takes f2 out of nowhere, down a pawn, plays a gambit with black in a situation where he absolutely doesn't have to, and he actually just forces a draw. So, you know, g takes h3 is impossible because queen g6 is a mate on g2 on the next move. And Magnus understands that a draw just clinches him a win in the match, so he just makes it. Yeah, I mean, this is very commonplace in top-level chess when it's an unrated game. This is an unrated game. Players, if a draw qualifies them, they will just make it to the next round with the draw. But actually here, there is a win, and the win is knight h3 and the absolutely incredible rook takes g2. And the point is that you really have to take. I mean, if you don't take, I play queen e4, I move my rook, you lose. And if king takes g2, it's queen g4 here and queen e4. Oops. Now, white can sack the queen and try to play this, but this is completely lost for white because of the attack on the king. So Magnus makes it look completely effortless, and he is our first semifinalist. So congratulations to Magnus. Very, very clean wins. Now, we go to the match between Yan Nepomniachtchi, who is the co-pilot in the thumbnail, and he is playing Vincent Keymer, and these two had 2 draws. Now, Jan is playing with the white pieces. This is their third rapid game. We have a Najdorf Sicilian. Okay, so we're set to play an interesting game. And for those of you that followed the game, Nepomniachtchi versus Geary from the prelims, there we had knight d7. I apologize. We had rook e1, knight d7, and bishop f3. And again, Nepomniachtchi plays rook e1. He plays this move for a third time, fourth time in recent weeks, and all hell breaks loose. Keymer attacks the queen side with the move b5, and now we have a4, targeting that side of the board. Black can play b4, but instead chooses to take the pawn. Now, that's a big decision. That's a big decision, because this is just a bit of a weakness, but you get to play d5, and that's kind of the move that you always want to play in these Najdorf. So it's a very complex Najdorf game. Knight ac5 here, played by Nepo. He targets bishop and pawn. Bishop back to c8, a trade, and we move the bishop out of the middle. Keymer jumps in with the knight. Now we have all sorts of tactics. I mean, bishop, knight, knight, queen pressures everything. Still things staring over here. Bishop targeting the knight. Nepo plays bishop back to f1. A bit of a solid move. Doesn't want black to capture. And the thing about Nepo is that he plays really fast. So he plays really fast, and he puts the pressure on the opponent to make all the right moves consistently, right? So queen c7, he gets rid of the knight. Rook d8, queen e2, and now the knight is back on a5. And in the long run, what white wants is white wants to win that a6 pawn and push the queenside pawns. He's not going to have a very easy time doing that, because if he plays c4, you go here, and if he plays b4, you take. So it's not easy at all, but the forces are facing in this direction. So we have rook b8. Nepo's like, let's get the queens off the board. Keymer's like, sure, but first let me grab this pawn real quick. Takes. Knight comes into c6. So Nepo takes and has the bishop pair and is playing against two weaknesses and has a passed c-pawn. That is how Nepo's going to try to win this game. Okay, so he takes on e5. We have h6, so no back rank weaknesses. Rook d1. So we're not going to take this. Notice that here you actually can take on a6, but this is just a draw. It's a draw because even something like rook b1 and opposite colored bishops, this is most likely just a very easy draw for black. Most likely. Because you just can't push your pawn at all. Black is okay. So Nepo can't just win that pawn. He actually has to use his rook activity, and he begins doing it. He begins advancing. He begins kind of getting his rooks and bishops in the right spots. Keymer creates counterplay on the king. Bishop comes back to protect the king. And Keymer trades rooks. Now, rook trade is a very big decision here because his rooks were very strong. So now Nepo's going to try to get the king out, just like Magnus did in his endgame, right? c5, king comes out a little bit more. And it's just becoming more and more clear, like, this is why bishops are better than knights in the endgame. Because even though this knight can get to f6 and come to d5, white is just winning that pawn on a6. Knight d5 check looks good, but the king is just safe. King's just safe. In fact, the king can walk in through the knight and bishop. So bishop comes back, king takes the knight, and I told you a while ago that the opposite colored bishop endgame could be a draw. The difference between the one that I showed you and this one is that here white is rolling. I mean, the pawn's just going down the board. It absolutely can't be stopped. It's going to get to c7. And once it gets there, it is so hard for black to prevent promotion. Rook will get behind the pawn, or you will sack the rook and queen. And that is what Nepo is about to demonstrate. Keymer decides to just sacrifice like this and play a rook versus bishop endgame. Only thing you have to do here with white is to not lose both your pawns. So as long as you can keep one pawn on the board, it's going to be enough. And in this case, we're actually going to keep more than one pawn on the board, and Keymer resigns on move 58. Keymer was unable to break through in game number 4, and Nepo is our second semifinalist. Now, they are not playing each other, Magnus and Nepo. They are awaiting the winners of the matches that are upcoming, and the match that is upcoming is the match between Andrei Yesipenko and Eric Hansen. I actually forgot to put the scores. I apologize. This is game number 3. So the first two games of Andrei versus Eric Hansen ended in draws. They both have 1 point out of 2. Let's begin. We have e4, e5. We have an invitation to play a Berlin. And Yesipenko's like, I'm good. I'm all right. No Berlin. Bishop c5. We have an anti-Berlin. So we have d3 with this capture on c6. Now, it wouldn't be a Yesipenko game if he didn't play a4 at some point. So we have to keep an eye on that. Black plays knight d7, very standard. f6 is common. The knight will reroute to the e6 square. The bishop will come out as well. Let's see how Hansen plays this. This early c3 d4 is actually quite rare as far as I know. It's much more common for white to like finish the development before playing c3 d4, but at the same time, it does look quite natural. The thing is, the guy with the 2 bishops and the open line at the center might want that, right? So we have bishop back to d6. Here comes bishop g5. Bishop goes here, and all right. We have b5 preventing the knight from coming to c4. It would not be a Yesipenko game if we didn't get the move a4. There it is. a4 is looking to target the queen side, but also it could be looking, for example, to take, but you also might play b4 and try to play a5. So let me just show you what that looks like. Like, this is positionally dominant because the bishop and the knight of black are completely restricted. Like, white is crushing here positionally. So there are many ideas associated with the move a4, and actually king h8 was played in the game. And I think Eric was considering some sort of attack, right? Rook e1, and now Eric's like, I'm actually not going to let you play a5 or b4. So there was a case here to be made for the move b4. But okay, we have rook e1, a5, bishop g3, and knight b6. So HANSEN's trying to target this side of the board, and he's actually very relentlessly, if I may say, targeting that side of the board with moves like c5. We have takes, and c4. Now, this is the world's ugliest pawn structure. I mean, I don't know what the hell is going on here. I have never seen isolated A, C, and E pawns all kind of touching each other up like this. But this is not really an isolated pawn, because technically it has an F pawn, but yeah, nothing's really going on there. So very strange position. In positions like this, white is looking at these squares, and white is looking at this target. Black is looking at these squares, and black is looking at these targets, right? The enemy targets. So HANSEN plays knight d7, and looks like he's putting the pieces back on the home squares. But his idea is to reroute to this square. White is playing knight f1 because his idea, obviously, is to reroute this way. Or put his queen on d5. Now, the queen on d5 looks very nice. But it's kind of locked. Because if you take this pawn, which was the entire idea, black plays bishop b7. Now you have a bit of an issue, right? So Yesipenko's not going to take on e5. With rook a7, he's probably going to go here, bishop b7, queen d3, knight d5, and then Yesipenko takes on e5. But wait, I don't understand. If he moves his queen back, he just gets taken. Well, that's the entire point, folks. Bishop takes d6. You know what's worth more than a queen? A GothamChess viewer who doesn't hunt for the pin of shame. Let the pin of shame belong to those with hate in their heart and those who have abandoned love and a sense of community. Let those people have an overzealous desire, a bloodlust, to write extremely long comments in order to just get a whole lot of negativity and unneeded criticisms across. I urge you to be better and do better. You're worth more than a queen. And so, my fellow global citizens, bishop takes d6, sacrificing the queen. What the hell is going on? Yesipenko has sacrificed the queen for a rook and a knight, but he has doubled pawn. He has connected pawns in the middle, and I think he wants to escort one of them to its finish line. Now, HANSEN here tries to fight back. He gets his king a little bit of breathing room and prevents a fork, but as this position begins transforming, folks, this is nasty. This is Eric's final chance to sack the rook and get a queen versus rook's endgame. Probably better for white, but probably drawable. But HANSEN doesn't do it. And now he doesn't sack, and he tries to let this pawn live to get some counterplay. And yeah, Yesipenko just consolidates, and black's got nothing. Black's got absolutely nothing, and it's going to get real bad because everything is about to get gobbled. So, rook h5, rook d5, you've got to block that pawn. If that pawn gets to d7, it's game over. Yesipenko starts coming in with the knight now. It's just not looking any good. You're going to get rid of this rook at some point. And he's very well on his way. That rook is being booted. Rook d8, the pawn is going to arrive on d7 in a moment. And that's it. The game is over because you just can't stop knight to b7, and then black's defenses will be crumbled. So, amazing game by Yesipenko. He kept the pressure on HANSEN for a while. HANSEN's defense was quite good. HANSEN also fought back in game 4, much like Keymer, but was unable to deal with the very good defense of Yesipenko. So, an unbelievable campaign in this event by Eric HANSEN. Probably the best underdog story in like all of these online events. I mean, yes, Prague beat Carlsen. I do understand that, and that's been making absolutely sensational global news. I even talked to the New York Times about it this morning. I'm not even joking. I spoke to the New York Times for like 10, 15 minutes. just sort of explaining what his accomplishment meant. But HANSEN was in this event. Eric Hansen's FIDE rapid rating. Eric Hansen FIDE 2579. I mean, FIDE. I mean, he's playing against 2750s, high 2600s. So, yeah, just great event by him. He should feel very proud of himself. Yesipenko moves on to face Nepomniachtchi. And that brings us to our final matchup. Now, folks, you might be 20 minutes into this. If you're not, you probably clicked off already because you saw Magnus. Maybe you saw Jan. Ooh, almost knocked over my my coffee. Folks, what you're about to watch is an unbelievable match. From all of these matches so far, we've had bits and pieces of good results. This match had 3 decisive games between Ding Liren and Vladislav Artemyev. So, yeah. You're about to have some fun. So this is game number 1. And it's an exchange. Queen's Gambit declined. I mean, just one of the most classical openings in all of chess. But it's going to get real weird real quick. I'm going to show you, okay? So it gets real weird because Artemyev doesn't develop his pieces. He just plays a5. Now, normally in these positions, white plays for a3, b4. Or, since the knight is here, white is going to play f3, bishop f2, and e4. This is one of the standard plans. So let's see which one Ding Liren chooses. Okay, it's becoming quite clear. He is playing for this plan. He's allowing Artemyev to expand over here, and he is going to play e4 at some point. Most likely, unless black prevents it at all costs. b3. b3 is always useful, preventing any sort of knight stuff. a4 looking very much on the cards. b4 looking like it could come in at some point. And yeah, I mean, Artemyev does seem to have a nice situation, right? He's got queenside activity. Bishop f5. He does get rid of one of white's bishops. I don't know how white is going to create an attack here, but folks, there will be e4 at some moment. So the players have a big maneuvering battle. They're both looking for very kind of key infiltration squares. White is looking for those 2 squares with the knight. Black is looking to do something on the queen side in order to land a knight on c4. Both infiltration spaces for those knights are controlled. So white has a bit of an advantage here. And you're going to see a4 come in a second. All right, so c5 and e4, and the sides have clashed, right? The center clash, look at this. I mean, all 4 pawns in the middle. War is about to break out here on the frontier between Ding Liren and Artemyev. We have c4 coming in on the queen side. Takes, and then it goes back to f4. You got to do something about this pawn because I'm going to take it. So he takes. Black has a pass c pawn, so just defended pass pawn. White has a pass d pawn and center control. In general, the side with the center control and the center presence is better. That's usually the case. But black has dynamics in his favor. He plays queen g5. He's got a lot of crazy stuff in terms of his piece play. Knight f6. At some point, this bishop is going to have to come back, or it's going to have to escort this pawn by standing on b2. So we have h4, queen g4, e5. We have a knight trade. Pawns for white are still extremely good. Queen b5, starting to hit those queenside pawns, but queen f3. Artemyev right in here, defends his bishop, pressures over here, giving up the c4 pawn. Rook takes c4, queen d3, looking like he is paralyzing the white position, but look at that. Uh-oh. Very nice move by Liren. His bishop on f2 holds everything. He's going to get a queen trade. You get a queen trade up a pawn. You're very happy. This pawn has survived. The c-pawn for black has not. And Artemyev begins some sort of counterplay, but everything in Ding Liren's position rock solid, and this is it. He gets caught here with the bishop in front of the rook. He can create some sort of, distractions, but Ding Liren has won a second pawn near the king, and it's going to take him a few moves to convert. But like we said, that pass d pawn, now there's 2 of them. Too much for Artemyev to deal with. Rook f8, and now a very nice move. Not pawn f8, because then bishop takes, but rook f8. King g7, and then you would queen, and the game is lost. I mean, black just simply has a queen for a rook. That's just not... Rook for a queen. That's just simply not what you want. So, very competitive and very complicated. Queen's Gambit declined. I mean, there was maneuvering clashes in the middle of the board, but Liren played a nearly flawless game in terms of calculation. And now we are on to the next game that he has with the white pieces. This time, Artemyev goes for a Slav defense, and he plays a semi-Slav. Now, we have bishop g5, the ultra main line. We have knight bd7, an exchange, so now we have a bit of a Cambridge Springs, if you will. Like normally here, queen a5 is a move to play knight into e4, but bishop e7 played, and he plays knight e4 anyway. Tactical opportunities existing. If you notice that the Queen's Gambit decline structure is actually kind of similar. Like, If you just take a look at this exact structure and the one from a game ago, it's quite similar, but the knight is on f3. Did you notice? Don't lie to me. Did you notice? That's the whole point. The point is that this is an entirely different structure. If this knight was back and hadn't moved there on the third move, we would be talking about a different situation. But also, the bishop is blocking, right? The knight is blocking the bishop. So, Ding Liren in this game has to deal with the center blockade by Artemiev that he's trying to impose, right? Look at Artemiev's position. I mean, everything is based on the center blockade. And Ding Liren here very politely goes, excuse me, Vlad, please leave. Vlad, leave now. I'm no longer asking, I'm now telling you that is an order, leave. Takes, and Artemiev's like, once again, we have a situation where my knight moves are controlled. Oh, well, that's exactly what I'm saying. My knight moves are controlled. Maybe I have to do something on this side of the board. Knight back to e8. Maybe I want to activate my bishop. Maybe I want to play f5. Maybe I want to get this knight to another part of the board. e4. The second he abandons the middle, Ding Liren pounces. He doesn't even need to bring his rooks in this particular case. He's just attacking that middle because that knight is a target and the bulldozer is approaching. ED is approaching. We have takes on e4, takes. He doesn't even worry about this pawn. There's no need to concern yourself with this pawn because it's actually doing a really nice job of queen d7. There's knight e5. There's h3. So knight g7, rook d1, and position's beautiful. Completely better for white. And Ding Liren is playing d5. He is ready to take this game over. He is ready to go to sleep. It's like 3:30. What the hell is 3:30 in the morning? 3 in the morning in China. He is ready to put this game away. Artemiev, let's wrap it up. And Artemiev takes a pawn here. He is down. He is now up a pawn. There are various tactics that are going to hit this queen. Knight is going to come in here. I mean, we get a knight square, so probably somewhere Eric Rosen like hiccuped and, smiled. But White's attack is just way too powerful. Right now it's +5 if Ding just plays takes, and knight takes f7. Winning on the spot. Just winning on the spot. Take, knight f7. If knight f7, you have queen f7 check. Knight here, the game is over. You hit the queen, you hit one of the rooks. Devastating. Check doesn't matter. King goes to h1. Does not matter. I mean, Ding Liren has the game, has the match right here. He plays king to h1. Okay, he wants to play it patient. Fine. Queen f3. But suddenly, f7 is no longer a target. And Ding Liren tries to get rid of the knight. Okay, fine. And plays queen b3, targeting the king. Okay, fine. King moves out of the way. And this is a moment where Ding can land another knockout punch. Knight takes f6, queen f7, f6 is hanging, mate is hanging, d6 is hanging in a moment, rook f6, and black probably just resigns. Like, rook c6, queen e6, the bishop is lost, black resigns. Just on the spot. You can play rook e8, rook f8 would be really nice. You can play rook e8 attacking the queen. I can even take on d6. Game is over. Instead, Ding takes the pawn. Fine, okay, fine. He wants to checkmate, fine. Rook g8. Ding once again has to play knight takes f6. Knight takes f6 and bishop g5. And Ding Liren plays this move. And oh my god, that move is losing for black. For white. Rook c2. The knight doesn't have to be defended. Rook h2 will hit the king, hit the bishop, and defend checkmate. I'll just defend h7 for the future. And that's exactly what happens. Rook takes f6. Here, apparently, queen a5 and trying to get, like, somewhere in here, hitting the knight, etc. is good for black. Artemiev plays rook h3, but the tide has completely turned. Rook d3 now, and suddenly, Ding Liren is under attack while also all his threats are being dealt with. His threats are being dealt with, and Artemiev wins the game. He wins the game. Out of nowhere, rook c2, absolute dynamite strike. I mean, the man was done. Chael, Sun, and Anderson Silva, a minute left in the 5th round, and Artemiev catches Ding Liren. Unbelievable. Ding Liren now needs to gather up the energy and bounce back, and oh, the scores aren't here. They're equal. It's 1.5 out of 3 for both players. Ding has to stabilize with the black pieces or win, but I already told you there's a decisive game. So does Ding win with black? Let's see. Artemiev begins with a non-d4 kind of ready, so a move order that is frequently used when white just wants to delay d4 as long as possible. You're going to see it's being delayed for quite some time. It's also very common here for black to play the move a6, because black doesn't want knight b5, right? Black doesn't want to allow White to just go for the bishop pair. Ding Liren seems unconcerned. He's like, yo, Artemiev, go ahead, do your worst. Your knight on b5 is not scary. Artemiev's like, who's gonna guard this? Knight back to e8, rook c1. Who's gonna guard that? Oh, you're gonna push it. Okay. And here he plays something hilarious. He takes the knight. Like, bishop taking this corner knight is a move that almost never happens. And he takes the pawn on a7. I've almost never seen a tactic like that. It's just so rare for, like, a knight to go in that far and actually have a safe trip home. So Artemiev's just up a pawn, and he just leaves. But Ding has a castled king, better development. He's about to suffocate these pieces with his bare hands, and he has the bishops. Right? He's just got the bishops. Artemiev plays bishop c4, quick development. Ding plays knight d6. He is looking to get 2 bishops versus 2 knights, and Artemiev's like, I don't have time to deal with that, so go ahead and take my bishop. Knight takes c4, b takes c4, and d3. Trying to make it very difficult for White to just move anything, right? It might have been better here after takes to actually take on e3. And the point is that these bishops could be a little bit stronger on open lines. When you close the position, the bishops don't get to do as much work. And Artemiev now has a relatively straightforward game plan. He plays rook c3, and this rook is going to help this way and help this pawn. Ding plays queen d7. And Artemiev's like, well, I'm just going to go after your e-pawn. Ding's like, I don't care. Take it, because I'm going after c4. Artemiev's like, yeah? How are you going after c4? I'm going to go take this pawn. And at this point, Ding, I'm sure, is thinking like, I'm down 2 pawns. What the hell is going on? It's 4 in the morning, h5. Like, we're going h4, h3. We're going to try to deliver a mate. And the worst part is the white knight on e1 actually defends g2. It's just so unfortunate. So rook takes d8, rook d8, and Artemiev's like, all right, come and get some. Come, h4, h4, come on. Okay, bishop c6. You don't want to play h4, a4. And all Artemiev needs to do is consolidate and just push. Consolidate, push. Reroute the knight to the middle, push. Let's see what he's going to do. Queen d7. Okay, consolidate. Knight c3, knight d5 on the way. Knight c3, there it is. He is even so confident he is going to give up this a-pawn. Right? He's just going to give up the a. He doesn't even need the a-pawn because his position is so pleasant. Bishop back on d8, knight f3, and I mean, look at the, come on. I mean, this is a beautiful knight. It has a police escort to the center of the board. Right? Pawn on h5 for absolutely no reason, not even attacking anything. Queen on b1, targeting b6. Artemiev consolidates everything. Ding tries to throw another haymaker to try to break out, but these pieces are just a little stranded, and Artemiev just begins kind of targeting those pieces, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, a tactic. And unlike Ding Liren in the last game, where the tactic was just there for the taking, Artemiev spots it instantly. Point being that if you take this knight, I mean, if you take the rook, I take your the knight, I take your rook, and if after knight d4 you do this, I can actually not just do this. I mean, that's also probably okay, but then rook d6. I take this, and normally, rook is not as good as 2 bishops. But here's the thing. 1, I can get 3 extra pawns, so I would have rook and 3 pawns versus 2 bishops, but then g5, and the rook is stuck. But Artemiev finds the winning move. The winning move is rook b5. And sometimes when bishops are just sort of left somewhere and don't have mobility and stranded on the back rank, they're actually just liabilities. Bishop a6, rook b8. Bishop a8, rook b8. Bishop c6, rook b8. That's it. You just can't defend one of your bishops. Now, if this was a position like this is a totally different story. Because here, bishop a6, rook b8, and black keeps both bishops. If both bishops survive, this is a totally different game, but a very precise move. And Ding Liren goes from being a move away from being a semi-finalist to knocked out of the Airthings Masters. I mean, you just got a feel for the guy. It's Artemiev Carlsen tomorrow in the semifinal. It's Yesipenko versus Nepomniachtchi, Magnus, and the 3 Russians. I will see you all tomorrow. That's it. Get out of here.